Good afternoon and welcome to The Way to Wow, People Making Money. I'm your host, Kevin Bemmel. And as those of you who have seen the show before know, we're here every Wednesday, 12:30 Pacific time and 3:30 Eastern time, and then an hour in for the other two time zones. Last week, I talked about how the economy and the elections are likely to impact our professional prospects for the coming year. And, now as we head toward the new year and think about, well, what am I going to do career-wise going forward? I think one of the topics that often comes up is maybe I'll, go back to college and earn a degree, and perhaps that will help. Especially among veterans who can go to school on the GI Bill. So essentially a college education is free or at a significantly reduced cost. So, hey, why not? Especially since the GI Bill also pays part of living expenses. And in fact, a lot of veterans use their GI Bill benefits in order to get the living stipend that goes with them. The sad reality is only a fraction, and a relatively small fraction of military veterans who go to college end up graduating with a completed degree. And there's lots of reasons why that is, and that's candidly not my topic for today. The point is, though, that when there's a lot of people starting college and for various reasons not finishing it, and that's true not only among military veterans, but that's true among all people who go to college, and yet people are coming out with oftentimes a pretty hefty chunk of college debt. So I want to look at this issue today. And I have several thoughts on it. I'm going to start out by saying, if we were having this discussion about 10 years ago, or maybe a little bit longer than that now, and you had asked me, should you go to college? I would say, absolutely, go to college. Your lifetime earnings, the lifetime earnings of a college graduate are much greater than a non-college graduate. And so you definitely should go. And over the last 10 years, I've changed my view on this issue. There are reasons to go to college, and there are other reasons not to go to college. I think there's, each of us has to do our own cost-benefit analysis as to whether, university is the right place for us. So I'm going to show you some information that will hopefully help you make these decisions, or at least give you some resources and things to think about as we examine this. So I'm going to go to share screen. Okay, here we go, and share. Okay, and oops, what have I got here? Okay, yeah. All right. So I think now, if you're going to go to college because you want the experience of going to college, you want to expand your academic involvement, so that's a separate issue. And by the way, that used to be the reason most people used to go to college for two reasons. One was to become more educated. And up until about maybe 50 or so years ago, what that meant was getting educated in what's known as the Western canon of literature and science and philosophy, etc. So people would do it for that reason, and they would do it because they wanted to pursue a profession. Now, the word profession today is very broad, but 50 to 100 years ago and earlier, profession meant certain specific jobs, if you will. They were the law, medicine, and the clergy. So if you were going to go into one of those three fields, so then typically you would go to college and you would study to join that. So, and in fact, at least a couple of the Ivy League schools were originally theological colleges. Basically, people, men went there because they wanted to join the ministry, and eventually the colleges expanded their programs and became universities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, today there's a broader range of professions that probably necessitate going to college, although not as much as you might think. But if you are intent on expanding your knowledge just generally, or you want to go into, again, the law, medicine, these days probably accounting falls into that as well. I'm going to exclude the clergy because things are different nowadays entering the clergy. Colleges are only some colleges are a major supplier of clergy. For example, Fuller Theological Seminary is a major supplier of clergy. But if those are your aims, so then the sort of cost benefit analysis that we're going to be doing here, may not be too relevant for you. You could make the argument there is no price you can put on expanding your mind, expanding the breadth of your knowledge, the depth of your knowledge, et cetera. And I think there is some merit to that argument. I would put a caveat on that, though, and that is if you have the means to pay for that education, right? So to get a liberal arts degree today, and we'll look at this in just a minute, is not an inexpensive undertaking the way it might have been 50 or more years ago. And the value of that degree for getting a job is somewhat limited. And so if you're going to get saddled with a lot of debt without a way to pay for it, as much as you want to pursue the deepening and broadening of your knowledge, that may just not be a possibility for you. So on that front, I leave you with those thoughts. So first of all, let's look at some information on how much college costs. So the average cost to attend college, you can see it here on the screen. So a private college, a little over $57,000. This is as of 2022, so as of this year. And for public colleges, you see in-state tuition is just under $28,000 and out-of-state tuition is a little over $45,000. So public colleges remain less expensive options than private colleges, although you can see the gap. Well, the gap for in-state tuition, we're talking about less than 50% of a private college. For an out-of-state, to pay out-of-state tuition at a public college, it's approaching what it would cost to go through a private college. Now, we'll just look at this. I just want to look at this a little bit more so you can see what goes into it. So there's tuition and fees, room and board, books and supplies, transportation, and personal expenses. So let's just look at some of those. So you can see that whereas the overall cost of going to college is I should say the overall cost of in-state, the overall in-state cost for going to a public college is about half of a private college. You can see the tuition portion of it is actually more like a quarter, okay? Whereas the tuition portion for out-of-state public colleges is the gap is about the same as it is for the overall cost. So, and that shows you room and board is, there's a couple $1,000s difference, but, fairly negligible. And looking at, some of the other expenses, I think there's not a big gap in those either. So here's I think what is perhaps more important is what is the average, what they call sticker price, the average cost, versus what you'll actually pay, your net price after subtracting financial aid. And you can see that one of the ways private universities, private colleges stay competitive is you're going to get a financial aid package on average that is about, well, it's over half of the cost of attending, right? And so that brings it down significantly. Whereas I'm sorry, I'm looking at this wrong. Sorry, scratch that. You're going to get an average aid package of about $25,000 for at private colleges. Here it is, $25,000, whereas it's going to be not quite $9,000 going to public college. Sorry, let me say that again, so to make sure it's clear. So the average aid package at a private institution is about $25,000, reducing the cost, the net price, to about $33,000. The average aid package at a public college is considerably less, about a third of what it would be at a private college, and it reduces the price from about $28,000 to about $19,000. Okay, so but you can see that the gap goes from $30,000 to about $12,000. So that is how private universities stay competitive. So what I want us to do is keep in mind this right here. Okay, this is the net price that you're going to pay, and this is, by the way, per year. Okay, so they're looking at the net price here for the 22-23 academic year, about $33,000 private, we'll call it $20,000 public college. Okay, and that's per year. So if you're getting a 4-year degree, you're looking at about $80,000 at a public college, and you're looking at about $133,000 at a private college. Okay, so that is, a hefty price tag. Now, for someone who is only going to pay in-state tuition, and they're not, concerned about room and board, so subtract 12,000 from 19,000, and you're looking at something. Well, you can't do a direct thing like that, but you're probably looking at 11,000 plus maybe a couple of thousand for books and whatever. So maybe you're paying 12, 13,000 if you're living at home. Okay, so that makes it more affordable. So maybe then you're going to be out of pocket somewhere around $40,000 or $50,000. Okay, so that's what you're looking at in terms of cost as of right now, anyway. All right. Okay, so let's look at average salaries now of college graduates, or just of average salaries. So the median yearly earnings of 24 to 34-year-old full-time workers, right? So if you have less than a high school diploma, you're looking at about $30,000 a year. With a high school diploma, you're looking at about $37,000 a year. Okay, some college but no degree bumps you up about little over $3,000. A 2-year degree, an associate degree, bumps you up by about $8,000, about $7,500. Okay, a bachelor's degree over a high school diploma is going to bump you up $23,000. Right? That's a pretty big bump, okay? And a master's degree is going to bump you up even farther. So it's going to bump you up by, what is this, about $36,000, okay? So, no, I'm sorry, $33,000, but almost double. And once you have a master's degree or higher, your median earnings are going to be almost double what they were in high school. So that would seem, and this has been the traditional argument in favor of going to college, is you're going to earn a lot more money than you would if you just have a high school diploma. Okay, now, one of the things to take into account is your earnings are going to be significantly different depending on what your major is. So if your major is in the humanities, you're looking at about $51,000. Okay, that's significantly lower than computer sciences, where you're in about $76,000. Okay, math and science is about 67. Okay, business about 61. Okay, engineering, here's 74, whereas social sciences, you're down at about 61, and agriculture and natural resources, you're at about 58. So there's a pretty big gap there, the bottom being about not quite 51, the top being 76. There's a 50% gap depending on what your major is, okay? And there's not a gap in terms of cost. The cost is what it is. Your earning potential has to do with your major. Now, the last thing I want to look at on this is average salary by age, because you can see whereas median wages in the arts and liberal arts and humanities is about $42,000 for a recent grad. By the time they're in their mid 40s to late 50s, you're looking at about $60,000. That's where you top out. And by the way, for teaching and serving, you start out at only about 39,000 and top out at about 51,000. Okay, now contrast that with science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, so-called STEM. Right, you're going to start at about $60,000. So you're going to start where liberal arts people end up, and you're going to start higher than where teaching and serving people end up. Okay, so you're going to start at 60 and you're going to top out at 90. Okay, these are medians again, so obviously there half the people make less, half the people make more. Okay, health and business and health are similar. You're going to start in the low 50s, go up into the low to mid 70s. Okay, and social sciences, you'll start about 49, end up at about 71. Okay, so there is an impact not only based on your degree, but wherever you start, that to a certain extent is going to determine where you end up. Okay, so these are the median salaries. Now, what I would say is, if you want to be involved in STEM, for example, so going to college appears to be a pretty good pretty good deal. Okay, if you're starting at median salary at 60,000 and you have this kind of growth potential, so you're probably going to do pretty well. All right, and if it's going to cost you about $80,000 to get that degree, let's say if you go to a public university or public college, so you're talking about not even a year and a half in essence to pay that back. Okay, whereas with liberal arts it's going to take you at least 2 years, and same with teaching, it's going to take you 2 years to pay that back. Okay, and when I say pay that back, that's not the only issue, because at $60,000, or for that matter, even 53, you're likely to have more disposable income to pay off that debt than you would at 42 or 39. So how pressed you're going to feel is going to make a big difference. So I'm not saying you will literally pay it off in 2 years, probably not. It's probably going to take you quite a number of years to pay it off, and probably quite a number of years longer than if you went into STEM, where you'll have more discretionary income earlier in your career, and so you'll be able to pay it off more quickly if you choose to. Okay, so that's I think one of the things to think about is, how is this debt going to burden you? Now, there are discussions about canceling student debt and about programs where if you go to work for this or that, your debt is canceled after 10 years and those kind of things. not commenting on the merit of those programs. The one thing I would say is just because those programs exist now doesn't mean they will exist 4 years from now. Okay, so, you may say, well, wait, that's unfair. If I start college and with the idea that I'm going to get one of these, go into one of these fields where after a certain number of years, my debt is canceled, and then they take that away, that's not fair. And the only thing I can tell you is, life is not fair. So I think it would be, imprudent to absolutely count on that being the case. I think you've got to weigh in your decision that these programs could potentially go away. And so you may be left paying off that debt, whether you like it or not. Okay, so if you don't go to college, right, and you don't pursue a college degree, does that mean then that you're going to be this is the wrong thing, you're going to be stuck making $40,000 a year or less? Now, these are the median earnings, but having said that, there are a number of jobs and professions that you can get into that will substantially increase the likelihood that you will do better than the median earnings, even though you don't have a college degree. Now, I mentioned that if you're going to go into STEM, you probably do want to go to college. Having said that, I have a very good friend who is a data scientist. He never went to college. He never completed college. I think he has a year of college, I want to say. And he taught himself both coding and data scientist, and he is making a ton of money. Okay, now, it took a lot of self-discipline on his part. But if you are a self-disciplined person and you really are interested in technology, so it's not necessarily the case that you need to get a degree. More and more companies are looking at candidates who don't have college degrees. Now, right now in technology, there's a lot of, as we talked about last week, there's a lot of layoffs going on, so it might be tough to get a job in technology right now, especially if you don't have a degree. What I would say is having the one advantage that having a degree gives you is access to the alumni network. Okay, so if you graduated from Harvard, you can reach out to a lot of people who have previously graduated from Harvard and network with them toward your professional success. Okay, so there is an advantage there, but that's not the only place to get that kind of advantage. Being in the military is equally good, if not better, in terms of your ability to reach out and network with people. I know I've done that myself. So college is no longer the only place to get that kind of step up based on having a built-in group of people with whom you can talk and share ideas and get advice and get mentors, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so again, another thing to keep in mind. Now, what if you, for whatever reason, just don't want to go to college, but you don't want to be stuck making, $40,000 a year or less? Well, so there are other fields that you can go into, and generally speaking, they fall into one of two categories. So one of them is licensed professions, and I'll talk about what that is in a minute. And the other is skilled trades, and I'll talk about that second. Okay, so let's talk about licensed professions first. So a licensed profession would include real estate, financial services, which includes insurance. It could include cosmetology, which is things like hair cutting and that sort of thing. These are all jobs for which you have to have a license in order to practice. Sometimes the license is at the federal level. Okay, so for example, if you're going to be involved in the securities industry, you're going to have to get licensed through FINRA, the Financial something or other Regulatory Association or agency or something like that. I don't remember what FINRA stands for. Okay, if you're going to sell insurance, you're going to need to be licensed in the states in which you're soliciting business. Okay, so if I'm in California, I have a life insurance license here a life insurance producer's license here in California. Okay, that would entitle me to sell life insurance to people located in California. If I want to sell insurance to somebody located in another state, I've got to comply with that state's requirements. Okay, so that's financial services. Real estate is another area. So if you want to sell real estate, and sell it meaning as someone who helps people buy and sell real estate, as a salesperson or as a broker. If you want to arrange real estate loans, if you want to appraise real estate, all of these require licenses, and those licenses are issued by each state. Okay, so before I joined the Navy, I had a commercial real estate company, and among the services I provided was appraisal services, and I had appraisal licenses in, I want to say, 5 states, maybe 6, something like that. I know I was licensed in California, Nevada, I think Colorado, Utah, I think New York as well, and maybe there was 1 or 2 others that I'm not remembering right now. Okay, so you need to have those licenses in order to represent people in transactions, or to handle, like I said, something like appraising, where you're going to be involved in what are called federally related transactions. So what that means is the federal government is in some way or another supporting that market or involved in that market for real estate loans. Now, technically, if you're going to do appraisals for, let's say, an estate planning lawyer, in most states, maybe all states, you don't need to have an appraisal license. However, the real estate appraisal licensing regime is so well known, it puts you at a competitive disadvantage if you do not have that license. And especially if you were going to be doing expert witness work, so you want some kind of credential. And frankly, the easiest one to get is a state license. Okay, so while there are situations where you may be able to practice without a license, you will end up giving up a significant part of your earning potential by doing that without having a license. And by the way, you can work at a real estate brokerage without a license. However, you cannot represent people. So that means you're going to be doing some kind of clerical work, something like that. And you know, your income potential is going to be, you know, fairly limited. Okay, so again, those are licensed professions. Let's look at here's this is information on financial services salaries. So they're showing total annual median is about $83,000 a year. Okay, if you're a licensed financial services person, and you have a range of 49,000 on the bottom end to 145,000 on the top end. This is according to who published? Oh, Glassdoor. Okay, so now, by the way, you can see you can do all kinds of permutations here. So we can look at it by years of experience. Oops, reload. Let's see if it'll reload. Reload. Please try later. Oh boy, it doesn't want to reload. Okay, here. Let's do this. Okay, and let's, oops. I don't want to do that. Okay, well, anyway, so, you know, I'm sure you can imagine that, you know, the lower end of the scale is going to be for people with less experience, and the higher end is going to be for people with more experience. Okay. So now let's look at real estate agents. This is an interesting chart, I mean, that I found from ZipRecruiter. So annual salaries as a real estate agent, this is someone who helps people buy and sell real estate. So the national average is just under $93,000, and it ranges from 17,500 on the low end to almost 200,000 on the high end. And of course, there are many people who make considerably more than $200,000 a year as real estate agents. So the average annual salary varies by state, from about $65,000 on the low end in North Carolina to the high end, which is 103,000 in Washington State. Okay, here's my state, California. It's about 93,000, which interestingly is just below Idaho and New Hampshire. Okay, Hawaii is also up there. So again, you can see that the earning potential you have as a real estate agent is very good, and you do not need to have a college degree in order to become a real estate agent. Now, it used to be that if you had a college degree, you would automatically qualify to become a real estate broker, which meant you could work on your own. You didn't have to be supervised by somebody. However, and when I first got my real estate license here in California back in 1986, I believe it was, I went directly, I got a broker's license directly. I never had a sales license, because at that time, as long as you had a 4-year degree and you took, I believe it was 8 real estate classes, so you qualified to take the real estate broker's exam. And in my case, I had worked for someone else, but I had worked, we weren't buying and selling or helping other people buy and sell real estate. We were buying and selling on our own account. So I didn't need a real estate license to do that. And so when I went out on my own, I got a broker's license directly. Now, recently, having gotten out of the Navy, I got a real estate license, and because I'd been out of the business so long, or well, let me rephrase that, because my license had lapsed so long ago, I had to qualify under the new requirements, and the new requirements require a certain number of years of experience in the real estate business, current experience in the real estate business, no matter what 4-year degree you have. So I had to go and get a real estate sales license. I didn't qualify for a broker's license, unfortunately. So that's just, that's just the way it goes. But you can see that, even without a degree, you're looking at a median average income of about $93,000, or not a median average, an average income, national average of about $93,000. So that's pretty good. I think, most of us could live a pretty good life on that. And now there are other licensed professions. I mentioned cosmetology. Those obviously don't pay typically as much as financial services or real estate. Having said that, they do pay, pretty well. I was looking it up earlier today. I think, kind of top salary, unless you're sort of, hairdresser to the stars or something like that, you can make in the mid $50,000 range, and that's certainly a respectable salary. It's higher than the $40,000 or lower that you would make without a college degree. Plus, you don't have, you may not have, I should say, the debt of going to college. Now, you may have to go to barber college, or you may have to go to, haircutting college, and that can be expensive. Okay, so that would be something you'd have to look at. Having said that, if college just really doesn't sound like what you want to do, or taking on a lot of debt isn't something you want to do, and you can't pay for it as you go, or you don't have, your parents are not going to pay for it. So I would encourage you to look into licensed professions to see what they may offer you. Okay, now another potential area is what are called skilled trades. Okay, so these are a broad range. Nowadays, many of these skilled trades are considered or are called professions, but historically they were known as trades. Let's just look at some of them, okay? So auto mechanic and transportation, right? So an aircraft mechanic, these are mean salaries, which means average salaries, okay? And some of these jobs take from just a couple of months to maybe 2 years to train for. So you're looking at almost $70,000 as an aircraft mechanic. Auto technician, $48,000. Diesel mechanic, $53,000. A motorcycle, $42,000. So some of them are not particularly high. However, we need to look deeper into them. So if you get into the Mercedes-Benz mechanics program, okay, once you get through that program, you're going to start, I believe, at about $80,000 a year. And in some areas, you may start at close to $100,000 a year. Okay, now you're working on a very sophisticated piece of machinery, a Mercedes-Benz, and so you know, and you're going to be dealing with a lot of computers, computer diagnostics, et cetera, et cetera. Having said that, you know, there are training programs. Mercedes-Benz runs a training program. I haven't looked specifically into BMW or some of the other luxury automakers, but I suspect they run similar programs. And if you can get into those programs, you can generate a very high salary, a higher starting salary than a lot of college graduates will get. And if you like working with your hands, that was my dad. My dad liked working with his hands. He never wanted to go into management. He was an engineer. He never wanted to go into management because he liked being there with the things that the companies were building. So if that's what you like to do, you know, I would suggest that maybe looking at some kind of skilled trade would be a much better option for you. Okay, so that's you know, auto and transportation, you know, building contractors and construction too. So carpenter, $55,000 a year. Construction manager, $108,000 a year. Now, you're not going to start as a construction manager, but if you get enough years under your belt in some other trade, you can probably move up there. Okay, look at electricians, $63,000, plumbers, $63,000, telecommunications line installer, $62,000, right? So these are you know, good salaries. Again, much better than the average high school graduate will make, and you don't have to go to college. You may be able to enter an apprenticeship program, okay? Or maybe, look, if you're still in high school and you're thinking about what do I want to do after high school, I had a friend who, after the summer after he graduated from high school, he got a job in construction. And then he did go to college because he wanted to be an architect. But during the summers, he went back and worked construction. And over the years, his skills kept improving, and he kept making more and more money, right? And plus, he got to be outside in the summertime. He had a great suntan. He, you know, the work, you know, he was like a built guy as a result. And he really enjoyed the work. So if you don't want to be stuck in an office, I would, again, look at the building trades, okay? Look, I think the lowest here is what, a machinist at $49,000. I'm not exactly sure what a machinist does. I assume you're machining maybe ventilation ducts or things like that. But look, these are just some examples. Here's a wind turbine service technician, over $58,000 a year. And you know, wind as an energy source is increasing. There's a tremendous amount of money. When I say tremendous amount, tens of billions of dollars appropriated in Washington for renewable energy sources. And as more and more wind turbines are built, they're going to need more and more technicians. So this could be, you know, a growing field. Okay, another skilled trade, math, science, and engineering. Now, these are technician level careers. For mathematician is separate. That's a college graduate. Okay. And you can see $112,000. But just to be an electrical or electronics technician, you're looking at $69,000 a year. A chemical technician, 55. Mechanical engineering technician, 63,000. Okay. There are technical programs that you can enter that doesn't require you to go to college. Here it says it takes 2 to 4 years to train. Obviously, 4 years for a mathematician, but some of these other ones, a couple of years to train, and you're off and running, and you're making a lot of money. Okay, and then there's medical administration, right? So medical biller, coding specialist, social. A healthcare social worker probably went to college. Medical and health services managers at 120,000. That's probably who has some kind of public health degree or something like that. So that's probably not someone without a college degree. But again, these are like a coding specialist. This is an insurance coding specialist, right? At 48,000, that's better than what you would make as a just a kind of straight high school graduate. Okay, and here's more in terms of medical and dental. So now you're seeing why the salary for high school graduates is low. Health aide, $29,000. Okay, that if all you've done is graduated from high school and you have no additional training, so you can probably qualify to be a health aide. Okay. But you're not going to make a whole lot of money. Dental hygienist, you can go to dental hygiene school, $81,000. Okay. Let's see, what was the other one? Physical therapy assistant, $61,000. Okay. Now, physical therapist, $93,000 a year. Registered nurse, $83,000. Most of the time, if not all of the time, people go to college to qualify to be physical therapists and RNs. Okay, but you may decide that you want to be an LPN, licensed practical nurse, or an LVN, licensed vocational nurse. Okay, making about $52,000 a year. Again, I think LVN programs, if I remember correctly, are about 2 years. So these are vocational programs, and you can get right to work. And if you enjoy, helping people, taking care of people, so that, may very well be a good option for you. And remember that the sooner you get into a field, the sooner you get into your working career, the sooner you'll start getting pay raises. Okay. So it may make more sense for you to do a 2-year trade program and get to work 2 years, at least 2 years sooner than it would be if you went to college. And start, getting in on increased salaries. Okay. All right. Let's see, what else do we have here? Okay. So art and design. Okay. I don't know what to say about that, frankly. Okay. So here's cosmetology. Oh, okay. I was wrong on the barber. It says $36,000 a year. Normally takes 6 months to 1 year to train. However, if you build up your own clientele, as they note here, you can do pretty well. Now, by the way, theatrical makeup specialist, $124,000 a year. To the best of my knowledge, these people do not go to college. They learn their trade probably as apprentices and then building up. So that is a whopping salary, right? You're doing real well. And if that's what you like, again, you may have some lean years in the beginning, but if you can build up to that kind of salary and not have to worry about paying off college debt, hey, wow. I mean, that's a great option to consider. Okay, criminal justice. So court reporter, 65,000. You will have to go to court reporter school. I don't remember how long it is. I think it's 6 months. I could be wrong, could be a year, but it's by no means a 4-year program. And there is a dearth of court reporters. Okay, so they are looking for them. Paralegal, again, you don't need a 4-year degree. You can go to paralegal school. I think it's a year or two. $58,000. And then, of course, law enforcement. So average salary, $71,000. Now, it is the case that more and more law enforcement officers do have college degrees. However, if you're coming out of the military, for example, you don't need to have a college degree to go into law enforcement. And in fact, most localities are desperate for people to come into law enforcement. And this is not reflected here, but in some cases, they're paying pretty significant signing bonuses if you join a police department and get through their training academy, or join a sheriff's department and get through their training academy. So, again, if working with the public, serving your fellow citizens is something that interests you. So, law enforcement could be a much better career these days than going to college. Now, if you talk to people currently in law enforcement, you will hear a lot of dissatisfaction. A lot of people in law enforcement feel that they don't have good public support. But that does vary from city to city. So, for example, if you were to talk to police officers in the city of Beverly Hills, I go there often, and I say hello to police officers whenever I kind of walk by them, or they drive by, I'll wave or whatever. And if you talk to them, they'll tell you people in Beverly Hills are very supportive, and so being in Beverly Hills PD is a great job. Now, there are other jurisdictions, I'm not going to cast aspersions, but other municipalities or whatever where that may not be the case. And so maybe that's, you don't want to be there. You don't want to be there. But there are lots of municipalities and counties across the country where people are still very supportive of law enforcement. And the key would be, where are they, and is that a place where you want to be? Something, though, that might well be worth your checking into. Okay. Finally, culinary arts and food service. So a chef or a head cook is making about $57,000 a year. Okay. A dietitian and nutritionist making about $66,000 a year. Food service or restaurant manager making about $64,000 a year. Okay. So in all these cases, you may have to take a program, could be 6 months, could be a year, could be 2 years. There are some 4-year programs. If you're completing a 4-year program, though, you're probably headed to be an executive chef, and executive chefs, frankly, make higher salaries than what you see here. So if you like to cook, or again, if you were in the military, let's say you were a culinary specialist in the Navy, or I don't know what the equivalent designations are in the Army and Air Force and Marine Corps, but if you were a military cook, so you may very well have the qualifications you need already to get into culinary arts and food service in the private sector. And if you like cooking, there's lots of opportunity there. Now, there is a ton of entry-level opportunity pretty much everywhere, I think, these days, as a result of COVID and all of that. If you're looking at it, though, as a long-term profession, so you're probably going to want to have some trade education and or come in with some experience, and that will help you move up more quickly. But you can see that, again, with the exception of the baker pastry chef, all of these salaries are higher than the average salary that you make with a high school diploma. Okay, so what does this all mean? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the sharing, and we'll just sort of summarize what we've been talking about. I think these days, the idea that you get out of high school and you have to go to college, I don't think that is the case anymore. There are a number of large companies, including Google, EY, which used to be Ernst Young, that have positions that do not require a college degree. And as you can imagine, at companies of this size, these are good paying jobs with advancement opportunities. And I think Home Depot also has positions that don't require college degrees. And I don't think it's just people who are, working sales on the floor. I think you have the ability to advance as well. So if you want to go to college for the experience, or because you, as I said before, you want to expand your knowledge, and you have the luxury of doing that and not have to worry about how, you're going to pay for college, by all means, go to college. There's nothing wrong with going to college. Okay. What is a challenge is if you have to pay for college out of your pocket or borrow money. And so then I think it becomes a more complex decision, because are you going to be able to pay it back? Are the programs that would cancel your student debt going to be there by the time you get out of college? Or if you're going back to school and you're thinking about getting a master's degree or some kind of PhD or professional degree, is that worthwhile? I have a friend who already had an undergraduate and I think 2 master's degrees, went and got an MBA. Actually, she had 1 master's degree, went and got an MBA, thinking this would help her get a corporate job, and it did not. Okay, so now it's one thing if you have an MBA from, say, Harvard or Yale or the Wharton School or something like that. So you've got an alumni network that can help you get a job. Of course, those are very competitive programs to get into. But to just sort of go and get a generic MBA, I'm not sure that that's really worth the cost anymore, and the time delay in getting started in on some kind of career path. Okay, so the 2 alternatives we talked about are getting involved in some kind of licensed profession, financial services, real estate. Those are probably the 2 best known, and they are the 2 with the most opportunities. I'm not going to talk about specific companies. There are a number of them out there. And if you want to message me, I'm happy to talk to you about some of the ones that I know about, some of the opportunities that I'm aware of. Some of these programs are incredibly lucrative, and some of them you can even get equity in the parent companies if your practice grows big enough. And that's really an astonishing feature. That's something fairly new, just in the last probably, 5, maybe 10 years. Certainly when I started in real estate, there was no brokerage I could join that would give me equity in the parent company. That such things didn't exist. But people are innovating, and they're coming up with new ways to encourage people to come into their businesses. And so there's a number of programs like that. So that's definitely something to look into. The licenses are not difficult to get. They will take some studying. In some cases, the companies will pay for the study courses that you need to take, so that you're not out of pocket. So you're out of pocket little, if anything. And they'll pay for you to take the license exams as well. Okay, and again, they're not super difficult. If you apply yourself, you will be able to pass. Okay, and so that's one thing to consider. Another thing to consider is, like I said, the skilled trades, whether that's auto mechanics, airline mechanics, whether it's the building trades, whether it's some kind of medical career that's not below, but other than a doctor or a registered nurse or like a nurse practitioner. Those are all college-based programs, but other things, dental hygienist and things at that level, you don't need to go to college to be in those areas. And so it could be a great alternative, as can food services and some of the other things that we talked about earlier in the show. So I would encourage you to think about, what do you want your daily work life to look like? Okay. Do you want to be in an office? Do you want to be outside? Do you want to be interacting with people on a regular basis? Do you not want to be interacting with people on a regular basis? Okay, if you're an auto mechanic, while you may be interacting with your colleagues, you're probably not going to be interacting with the public very much. And that you may like that. And so that may be a better alternative than something else. Okay. On the other hand, if you like working with the public, so maybe one of the licensed professions will be better, because those tend to be jobs in which you're going to be working with members of the public, educating them, helping them transact, helping them with their finances, whatever it is, whatever part of it that you're involved with. Okay. So look at those things. Look at where you want to live. Do you want to live in an urban environment, in a suburban environment, in a rural environment? That too will help determine what kind of career you want to pursue. If you want to live in a rural environment, but make a sizable salary, so maybe one of the building trades, or skilled trades, I should say, may not be the right path for you. But these days, if you're a licensed professional, so with Zoom, you can have meetings with potential clients from wherever you are in the country. So as long as you have internet service, broadband service anyway, you can work anywhere. And so that may be an alternative. Or you may decide, hey, I want to live in rural America, but I want, I'm going to go to college and get the kind of job that you get coming out of college that allows me to work remotely. Okay, so then that may be the driver. So I encourage you to look at all of those factors, think about them. If you have a spouse, talk to your spouse, or if you have a significant other, talk to that person and figure out what is going to work for you. Okay, and then make a decision. Okay, what I would hope you won't do is overanalyze and spend 12 months, 2 years, choose something, give it a try. These days, most of us are going to have multiple careers, and almost for sure, we're going to have one or two that we try that we don't like. Nothing wrong with that. Just give it a shot. Give it a shot. Okay, you may find that you like it. You may find that you hate it, so you're going to go do something else. If you can do that when you're younger, you'll be much better off. Once you become an old guy like me and you have responsibilities, it's harder to take those kind of risks, make those kind of changes. So I encourage you to experiment and give it a try. The worst that'll happen is you won't like something and you'll go in a different direction. And you'll know that within 6 to 12 months at the most. So why not give it a shot? Okay. All right. So that brings us to the end of the show. It kind of zoomed by. With these kind of topics, I never know I'm going to have enough to say for an hour, but it turns out that I did. So it's to the day before Thanksgiving. So I do want to wish you a very happy Thanksgiving. Hopefully you have friends and family to spend it with, or you've got something special planned, and that's a wonderful thing. I do want to take a moment and just note that most of us, if we grew up in the United States, so we heard about the first Thanksgiving with the Pilgrims and all of that, and that's great. I think it behooves us to perhaps take a look at George Washington's proclamation for Thanksgiving Day. It's a beautiful sentiment, and it might add some richness to the holiday, to the celebration. And also look at Abraham Lincoln when he declared Thanksgiving a national holiday. He was the first president to do that, and that's worth taking a look at as well. It's it's a wonderful time to get together with family and friends, and hopefully we'll also get a sense of the deeper meaning of Thanksgiving, which is to give thanks for all that we have, for the people in our lives, for the gifts that God gave us. Would you expect less than that from a rabbi? Or if you don't believe in God, so then wherever that bounty comes from the ability of the earth to grow food and all of that, I think it's useful to reflect on that periodically And so I hope amidst the food and the the sporting events and whatever else you have planned for tomorrow, that you will take a few moments to do so. And that just leaves it for me to say to my dear friend Marie, you are still my belle. I'll be thinking about you tomorrow and being grateful for the time that we got to spend together. Wishing you all the best. If you have any help, if you want any help with your career plans and sorting out college, licenses, building skilled trades, whatever, my email address will be in the show notes, and feel free to reach out to me. Look forward to seeing you this time next week. Happy Thanksgiving.